The second-hand Rose Debutante Ball is a colourful event on the Port's social calendar. At 81, Etty Oxley-Smith may well be the oldest debutante in history.
It's been an exciting time and met so many friends up here while we've been practising for the dance that we did. We did the rumba, you know.
The ball was held to help raise funds for the Touch Football State Cup, which will be held in Port Macquarie later this month. But for the debutantes, it was a chance to capture a lost part of their youth.
I don't feel that old anyway. I feel quite young, really, tonight.
Jason Neuenhoff, NBN News.
The record attempt was part of a night of martial arts to raise money for sudden infant death syndrome. Many of the displays designed to promote the idea that the mind can overcome most difficulties and that a well-aimed elbow or fist can deliver that mental energy with devastating force. And if breaking concrete with one of your limbs seems a bit old-fashioned, there's always your forehead available. But not everyone's performance went to plan. One of the group's latest disciples found pain came a lot easier than smashing success. But pain was the last thing on Les Harness's mind for his world record attempt. With 6 blocks suspended by needles through his flesh, his assistant belted away until they were all shattered. It's unclear at this stage if Les intends to go one step further and break his own world record by again adding more bricks.
Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged.
Prayers were offered for the thousands of people who are unemployed, facing both financial and emotional difficulties. Thoughts also turned to the issue of Aboriginal reconciliation in the Hunter. The breakfast was organised by representatives of a number of churches and the local Aboriginal community. New South Wales Governor Rear Admiral Sinclair addressed the 700 people who attended the ceremony. A rare jewel, the production, including music, song and dance, was commissioned by Newcastle City Council, especially for the opening of the Civic Theatre. Right up until 2 hours before the first performance was due to start last night, there were fears that the show wouldn't go on.
We'd done everything, but we hadn't got the proper copyright for it. That had to be negotiated, and we negotiated that, and there had to be changes in the show to get the copyright.
Councillor Rigby says there were minor changes made to the production, the main one involving the costumes worn by the actors.
The actors are wearing what we call concert dress, especially to do a concert production, which is the rights that we're operating under.
The changes created an additional problem. The actors weren't prepared to go on stage unless the show was announced as a dress rehearsal.
Tonight's performance will take the form of a public dress rehearsal.
The changed production will be performed tonight at the official opening.
6, 8 and 4, and lo and behold, Gary Harley tipped the winner at paid $2.90 and $1.70. The trifecta $170, the Quinella an even $20. At Rose Hill, radio station 2WS sponsored race 6. 2, 1 and 3, and an interesting combination of numbers to win a trifecta. The winner, enough time, paid $9.20 and $2. "29-year-old Scott Merrilees is still on top of the world. It was only the first time he'd entered the freestyle division and came away rated as third in the world. The only limit on the stunts he pulled was the height he had to release his chute.
In the headstand that I was doing to finish off the jump, all I could see is just all the houses and the canals coming up at me. So it made you very aware of your height.
But it wasn't all Scott's work. His whole routine is judged on the quality of his cameraman's tape.
Without him, it's nothing in the competition sense.
And cameraman Mark Coots says they may have rehearsed the routine over and over, but when they hit the sky, that's where the friendship ends.
If he hasn't finished what he wanted to do when I want to open, well, it's tough.
And the Australian 8-member formation team also performed well overseas. 3 of the group are from Newcastle and surprised the world parachuting fraternity by finishing third in the US Nationals. The Aussies are all amateurs, and the 2 groups that finished ahead of them are full-time military teams.
We're creeping closer. We do a lot of moves which are comparable to what they're doing now. It's just not consistently all the moves, but we can reach them. If we had a little bit more time to do it, we'd be able to reach them easy.
And despite their good performance, they came home without anything to prove it.
The Norwegian team, which came second, and us, who we came third, we weren't allowed to have the medals because we were guest competitors. But we know what we did.
The Lake Haven Centre between Gorokan and Charm Haven is the Central Coast's second largest shopping centre. During the last 12 months, it's undergone a $15 million facelift, increasing the number of specialty shops from 48 to more than 100. Today it was officially opened by federal member Michael Lee. The real applause, however, was saved for Canberra footballing hero Mal Meninga, who gave his endorsement to the project before flying back to the nation's capital to begin pre-season training for next year. The Lake Haven Centre was taken over in 1988 by UK-based PSIT. Managing Director Jeff Kane says the centre's expansion is to keep up with the area's population growth, and there are other plans on the horizon, including a multi-screen cinema complex.
We're more than happy to spend the money, but we are a public company back in the UK, and therefore it has to, what I term, stack up. You have to have adequate returns on the money you're investing, and provided we can get that, we would be more than happy to put a cinema here.
While shareholders in the UK were originally doubtful of Lake Haven's potential, it's proven a worthy investment.
The UK's been in recession for a long time, and now it's only just about coming out of it, and the one bright star has been Lake Haven, so we're very, very happy indeed with it.
The Century Theatre at the Nineways had been a landmark until the December '89 earthquake. Yellow Pages Australia has become the first business to utilise the site, with a customer centre to service Newcastle and the Hunter. Newcastle Lord Mayor Councillor John McNaughton opened the facility, which is valued at $750,000 and houses 22 employees. National Sales Manager Vicky Corbett says the Newcastle Lower Hunters Service is the largest regional directory published by the organisation.
We, over the last 4 years, have grown our operation by 30%, and it sits behind the major metropolitan directories and offices in size. So it's very significant to Yellow Pages Australia.
Another site to be left barren by the earthquake, Newcastle RSL Club at the corner of King and Perkins Streets, is almost ready for occupation. Today, Novocastrians got their first look at what will be known as King's Hall Chambers, following the removal of some of the scaffolding that has shrouded the building. 3/4 of the office complex has been leased, with agents confident of having tenants for the remaining space. Finishing touches are still being added, with the chambers to be in use from about mid-next month.
You could be forgiven for thinking this was a prize-winning botanical garden, but in fact it's the pride and joy of workmen at the Pasminco metal sulphide plant. The garden is part of an extensive greening program being undertaken by the company to further reduce its impact on the local community.
We've got dust which is generated from the site on uncovered land, and that can blow into the local community. And it's important that we reduce the amount of dust and fugitive emission which is generated on site.
Residents will also soon see a major change to Moneybung Hill behind the sulphide plant. Each year for the next decade, the company will spend upwards of $50,000 planting thousands of trees on the hill. This year alone, 10,000 trees will be planted under the supervision of the company's first full-time gardener. Helping him with the task are 8 employees of Wickham Industries. The hill has been bare since the beginning of the century, when the trees were cut down for use in local industries. Pasminco now wants to change that.
That's a massive program to get 50 hectares of land covered with trees, but we're going to make a start, and we're going to do groves of trees across Moneybung Hill, starting from the southern section, and we think it'll make a big impact over the next 5 to 10 years.
The Migrant Employment and Qualification Board is the state government's advisory panel on job prospects for people of non-English speaking backgrounds. The board met local migrant service workers and announced the approval of an information officer for the region.
Hunter region is Newcastle to Dubbo pretty well, and there are pockets of migrants, unemployed migrants, who are hard to reach, if I can put it that way. And so to have someone based here but moving is, we thought, the answer to this problem.
The board is a high-profile body with State Labor Council Secretary Michael Eason and former anti-discrimination official Carmel Nyland on the panel. Chairman Gordon Samuels believes they have an important role in helping migrants with their transition into the workforce.
Qualification gained overseas can readily be tested and assessed, and if they stand up to the critical asset, then the people who have them should be allowed to practice whatever it is in New South Wales. That's why they came here, after all. We owe them a moral duty, I think.
It's the second occasion the board has met outside Sydney, and further visits to regional areas are expected next year. Permanent and casual employees met at Carrington Bowling Club to be informed by Metal Workers State Organiser Mary McGill of Forjac's demands for the survival of the ship repair business. They were prepared to accept the retrenchment of 15 fellow workers, but they weren't prepared to enter into early negotiations on a new enterprise agreement for the site. Union officials took part in several rounds of discussions with Forjac's management. Workers had converged on the dockyard to hear what was expected to be the final results of the day's negotiations. Some were allowed on the premises to collect their personal belongings. However, the news changed dramatically as they were being informed the matter was destined for arbitration. The decision drew an angry response from the men, with calls for a union ban or picket of the site. Mary McGill says the Metal Workers Union has done everything possible to maintain industrial stability at the yard.
We believe that we've had massive change around, a lot more flexibility, and when the new agreement was up for negotiation, we accepted there would have been more flexibility have to occur.
Newcastle Harbour's pilot vessel has been stranded in dry dock by the sackings. Forjac's management has refused to comment on the future of its activities at Carrington following today's snap decision.
This is a plan of the house developer Jeff McCloy wants to build on Green Point. Last night it gained support in a council committee meeting. It's expected to get the go-ahead from full council next week. The house is a 4-bedroom, 2-storey luxury residence fronting Lake Macquarie. Meanwhile, the future of Green Point was again discussed in detail at the meeting. Council is continuing negotiations with the McCloy company to buy part of the estate for parkland. Also last night, Council agreed to initiate a meeting with youth and church workers to discuss vandalism in the Charlestown Mall. Teenagers, particularly at weekends, gather in the mall, and Council is concerned about graffiti and vandalism attacks. A letter will also be sent to the state government asking for more funding for local police. And in other Lake Macquarie news, Council is to commence action in the Land and Environment Court in an attempt to stop this land at Bennett's Green being used as a car dumping ground. In a council report, council officers say that despite requests, the owner has failed to remove the car bodies and generally clean up the appearance of the site. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The 26-year-old point guard is no stranger to the NBL. He played for the Brisbane Bullets in 1990 and 1991 before a controversial sacking from the Northern club. After a stint in the English League, the American guard is keen to prove his critics wrong back in Australia. And Falcons coach Tom Wisman hopes he does prove them wrong after choosing Rucker over Everett Stevens, who has been with the team for the past 2 years.
Felt that we needed to or could improve the team in getting a more true point guard to take charge of the team leadership-wise.
Rucker was signed under the noses of the Geelong Supercats, who were also in the bidding for the NBL star.
He is a point guard who can score and passes the ball very well. He's quick, and I think he plays an exciting type of basketball that the fans will enjoy.
The signing of Rucker leaves the Falcons with just one key forward position to fill. Last year's power forward Simon O'Donnell is in the running for the spot, which will be known by the end of this week. Jason Neuenhoff, NBN News.
Hey.
Cumnock No. 1 recently celebrated its second anniversary of private ownership. In 25 months, the mine has advanced from an underground operation to include open-cut coal extraction. Cumnock Coal is now seeking to raise $20 million from a public share float.
The company is in the process of expansion, and comes the time in every company's development when you need a greater injection of capital.
Mine Director Helen Dalton says efficiency improvements will flow from the investment.
We are aiming at the semi-coking market overseas for coal, and that requires washing. And of course we then have to have access to Port Waratah to get it down there. That means that we've got to upgrade handling and washing facilities. Because this is primarily an underground mine, we also have to buy another continuous miner.
10 million $2 shares go on sale as preparations begin for Cumnock South, the mine's second open cut. The external work areas are part of the company's strategy to continue production until a major underground seam comes online. Cumnock shares are expected to be fully subscribed before the South Open Cut produces its first coal early next year. Pacific Power's workers are eagerly waiting an enterprise agreement. However, the first proposal put to them has been overwhelmingly rejected. A lunchtime meeting at Bayswater ended this weekend's round of report-back sessions by State Labor Council and union officials to Hunter and Central Coast employees on the matter. The meeting was also used to gain feedback on workers' concerns about their employer's proposal. Union officials say the sticking point in negotiations is Pacific Power's failure to recognise their claim for past productivity improvements. The organisation's workforce has been cut by 42% in recent years. However, most workers haven't had a pay increase for 2 years. Unions are concerned Pacific Power management may try to get some workforce acceptance of their current document to avoid further negotiations. The Labor Council says it wants a properly negotiated agreement acceptable to both parties, but points out Pacific Power has to return to the negotiating table for further talks to resolve the matter.
This 3-page memorandum has been sent to every teacher in the state, around 4,500 across the Hunter. Those interested in the early retirement package, offering up to $20,000 in addition to other entitlements, have until Friday to respond. The major criteria is that teachers 55 years and over must be able to demonstrate that a specific benefit would accrue as a result of their retirement. In addition, they must be regarded as generally competent, but who now find their work unrewarding.
The Teachers Federation are quite horrified about the insulting nature of the memorandum that was sent out to principals. It is not a nice thing to say to a teacher who's got 30 years experience, you prove that you are fairly useless and we will give you some money.
The Teachers Federation have misread the scene. Our department is a caring department and it will look after all of its employees and we value them highly.
While the Teachers Federation has warned its members to consider the offer carefully, the Education Department says for some, the scheme will create opportunities for advancement. For others, it offers an easy way out.
It's not saying put up your hand if you really can't do the job in that sense. It's saying if you feel that the changes are such and the timing is right and you'd like to go earlier than you thought, the opportunity is there.
The meeting between residents and councillors took place on the corner of Thornton Road and the New England Highway, one of 3 intersections which residents claim are dangerous. They're also concerned about Anderson Drive at Beresfield and Ferriby Drive, both of which join the New England Highway. Compounding the problem, they say, will be the proposed Glenview industrial estate between Thornton Road and Metford.
If the private industrial area does go ahead, it will have a direct access to the New England Highway. And all we need on this highway is another intersection and more fatalities.
What the residents want is for access to the estate to come via Thornton Road, not the highway, and for a coordinated approach to generally improving traffic conditions in the area.
Well, I believe that a coordinated approach is the only way to go. Compounding this development, of course, is the freeway, which will enter this part of the highway later this year.
A public meeting has been called for later this month where residents can discuss their concerns with the estate developer.
27-year-old Owens was back at training last night at Birmingham Gardens. He recalled the incident that split open his head in Melbourne last weekend and forced him off the field.
The goalkeeper kicked it out and went to challenge for it and just got there a little bit too late and clashed our heads.
Despite his injury, the Breakers managed to score their second win of the season, placing them on equal third spot on the table. In a crucial game at Birmingham Gardens this Friday night, Owens won't be content to rest his head. The consistent defender is set to take to the field with the wound bandaged as the Breakers line up against National League leaders, Sydney United. After a testing training session last night, Owens gave the injury the thumbs up.
It's no problem. Can't feel it, no headaches, or it's good.
Jodie Hill is an avid reader and, at the tender age of 11, an experienced fundraiser. Inspired by her grandmother, who has multiple sclerosis, Jodie has raised thousands of dollars through the MS Society's Readathon.
I raised $7,585.62.
As national champion, Jodie has won a family holiday to Disneyland. She handed over her efforts to Dr John Heath, who is researching multiple sclerosis at Newcastle's University. 1 in 400 Australians have the disease, which damages the covering of nerve fibres in the central nervous system. Every year, millions of dollars are spent on services and research. Although the cause of MS is still unknown, Jodie's donation could help unravel its mysteries.
This is the means by which the great majority of research funding into a condition like MS is provided. So unless people are getting out there and reading those books, then it's just not happening. The research is just not able to take place.
For people like Diana Rose, the money raised will go a long way.
In a whole range of ways, it will pay for some of the activities associated with people with multiple sclerosis, which is the group I head up here in the Hunter, to make people more aware of multiple sclerosis. So it's a terrific effort.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The glassy-eyed stares were only interrupted by an exciting passage of play. The emotions seesawed with the flow of the game, and if the Argentinian crowd could only hear the Newcastle connection when one of South America's national heroes feigned injury.
This is a big game. I mean, you know, the home leg got such a good crowd, and it really has captured the public's imagination.
Former Australian player Warren Spink says the goal against the Socceroos would have been soul-destroying for the team.
You never see a goal like that. He was so lucky. He got caught up in the wind, dropped in the far post. I mean, we had a few chances at the end. I thought we were very unlucky, at least not to get a draw.
The game over, it was time for the armchair critics to head back to work. A full replay of the game tonight on NBN at 9:30.
The unusual sight of camels and belly dancers in the foyer of the Newcastle Workers Club provided some exotic entertainment for onlookers. Gathering for tonight's grand opening of the city's new Lebanese restaurant, patrons will discover an interesting story behind the name 1001 Nights and a certain Prime Minister's daughter.
When Shahrazad joined the palace, she was very intelligent and she read the books of old legends. And she kept the king occupied for 1001 nights with 1001 stories.
With tales like Aladdin's lamp in store, it's a charity affair, all proceeds going to the Royal Institute for Deaf and Blind Children's Tingira Centre.
We have got that 4 or 5 belly dancers tonight, and then we are having a slave auction where we raise money for the charity as well.
And just like any friendly host, Sheikh Biden has a warm welcome prepared.
Salam to the heart, and like this, it means you're welcome.
Most golfers would love a private lesson from Jack Newton. He passed on advice to students at Lakeside Special School during the opening of a mini golf club. Newton says the game lends itself to a variety of skills and capabilities.
It seems to be a game that they really enjoy, and while it's very repetitious at this stage, teaching them the right way to grip the club and stand and things like that, pretty soon they get the idea of it and they get a lot of fun out of it.
The golf links became a reality through hours of voluntary work from the Lake Macquarie Kiwanis Club.
We had to build retaining walls and level the area. It was quite a steep, unused site at the rear of the school.
The club's next job will be to build the school a sensory garden. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The accident happened late last night on Wollombi Road, Bellbird, as the car travelled towards Cessnock.
When it was coming over a crest of a hill known as Skinner's Hill, the vehicle left the roadway. It mounted an embankment. After travelling a short distance, the vehicle collided with a telegraph pole. And as a result of that, the driver and the persons in the vehicle were fatally injured.
By daylight, the intensity of the crash was starkly obvious. The power pole splintered, snapping on impact, while debris was strewn metres from the point of collision. The stretch of Wollombi Road where the triple fatality happened is ironically only a kilometre from Cessnock's notorious accident black spot, the Pelton Pinch. Even though the area is a 60-kilometre zone, residents say they've been concerned by motorists travelling through the area at excessive speed. Friends of the victims converged on Cessnock Police Station during the day to see the twisted wreckage. Killed were 18-year-old Stephen Wright, Tanya Craft and Glenn Galloway, both aged 16, all from Cessnock. Investigations into the triple fatality are continuing.
Investigating police from the Accident Investigation Section at Newcastle are carrying out their inquiries, and I understand they're interviewing a person that had left the vehicle a short time earlier.
The tragedy happened minutes before the start of the latest police exercise, Operation Drink Drive, which is targeting the driving habits of young motorists.